Album Illustrations by Chill Hop Music. Welcome back to Build Theory. I'm Aurian Archive. Let's get restarted. If you were trying to follow last night, you might have noticed that I had a few slight difficult problems with a ongoing thunderstorm. And when power came back on and connection came back up, T-Mobile Home ISP kept jumping between a 3G and a WCDMA connection. Yeah, so I gave up trying to make a stream work last night, and we're going to try again this morning. Now, yesterday's stream, I think there were two of them. The first one went kind of deep, kind of heavy, really quickly. And the second one, I tried to focus on uh, the intent of building a character and figuring out how to determine what a character's strengths, natural strength would be in regard to survivability. Not necessarily what that character can do as a total character, but how they would survive against an incoming attack. And I showed that with a mastermind, that after slotting up all of the powers with just crafted IOs, basic crafted IOs, that even pushing in the ED cap, the mastermind wouldn't have a significant amount of self-sustained sustainability, at least not on the power set that I had chosen. Then I brought up a corruptor, a dark blast cold dom corruptor, and showed that that character had achieved a significant amount of survivability through enhancement sets. And then I set about trying to backport the corruptor build into the mastermind. And that's where we kind of pick up today. We're dealing uh, with the mastermind build and the corruptor I'm taking it from. And the first thing that I was doing was going through and slotting all of the cold domination powers that I knew that I would be taking and the levels at which I was taking them. And we're going to put the cold dom back on info for the moment. And okay, Frostwork we were actually taking a little bit later. And Arctic Fog we were taking as soon as possible. And I was also looking to bring in the various pool powers. And at some point, I had a jot down the various pool powers that were used to achieve the corruptor's survivability, and which of those pool powers I could go ahead and think about dropping in order to not change the build too much and still retain survivability. In this case, one of the few powers that's an easy drop is Tactics. While it would make sense that Tactics would be more valuable to a Mastermind and that it would provide an accuracy boost to all of the pets surrounding a Mastermind does get the Supremacy Inherent. When I come over here, the Inherent to all henchmen within range is plus accuracy plus damage. So tactics to a mastermind is not necessarily as valuable as simply staying within range of the various pets. All right. So as we were going down the line, I got to maneuvers, and we'll go ahead and slot maneuvers in at 44. Scorpion Shield, and this is uh, you'll hear me talk about this a lot. Defense in City of Heroes, because it's not just missing the damage of the attack, it's missing the all the effects that the attack carries, specifically the mez effects, the debuff effects, all the other ancillary effects that are carried by an attack. Defense avoids those. Resistance powers only lessen the amount of time they affect a player if there is a minimized resistance, but they don't avoid the effect entirely. And this is why defense is so powerful in City of Heroes and why every other aspect can be safely buffed with can literally be tripled. The bonuses on IOs could be tripled And even then, it's still a fair question as to whether or not, on strictly numerical balance, if those new bonuses would equal the simple survivability of getting to a defensive soft cap. And yes, you will hear me go down this rant a lot until that change is made, until the developers, in this case the Homecoming developers, finally get around to going, you know what, Cryptic and Paragon screwed it up. We're going to triple those values because this guy, he's been right every single time. He's the best builder this game has ever seen. He's done all the work. He's done all the calculations. We probably should just trust him by now. Giving me googly eyes on a forum post when I call the Homecoming devs out doesn't no. No, just no. Okay. This is probably going to be a very ranty one, if you couldn't tell. And that's why I'm trying to go with something chill in the music that's playing through my headphones and calm down a bit. It's deal with enough idiocy elsewhere. Let's try and keep this about the game and not about previous mistakes. All right. All right. Uh, Anyways, getting back to the build. Snowstorm is an easy drop, and I've gone into this on previous live streams that there is no toggle slow. And we'll go ahead and just play Snowstorm in just so we can look at it. There is no toggle slow enhancement set. All of the slow, you only have really two realistic choices. You have curtail speed and impeded swiftness are only 10 to 30. Tempered readiness and pacing of the turtle are 20 to 50. So you only have two realistic choices for enhancement that you can actually use, and that's tempered readiness and pacing of the turtle. And neither one of them are really big on endurance. Pacing of the turtle only has two endurance reductions: accuracy, endurance, and endurance recharge slow. Tempered readiness only has accuracy, endurance, and endurance recharge slow. And if I go ahead and I just two slot this, and we're just going to take those two endurance powers, accuracy, endurance, and endurance recharge slow, and then we mouse over, and we see that we only have 59% endurance discount. And that's not a lot. That's not for a toggle debuff that you're dropping onto an enemy that you intend to sustain for a serious amount of time. That is not a significant amount at all. Now, you can cheat the system, as it were. If I go over and I do an accuracy endurance and push it into 50 plus 5, we start getting into the ED cap. But if you notice, we're not into red ED cap. In fact, out of this, we're pushing 89.92% endurance, and our pre-ED is 92.75. That's not really a dramatic cutoff. And so let's go endurance recharge slow and tempered readiness, the second one, and now check it. Only now, after we've gone 4 slots in with an ACK end, then recharge slow, ACK end, then recharge slow, are we actually into red ED cap, where we have a significant endurance reduction on the power. And this is why some powers, and we'll X Snowstorm out for a second because we don't really need it for an example right now. This is why some powers will pick up Cross Punch. PBAOE powers got Eradication and Obliteration. These are recharge intensive powers. They have a lot of recharge. Accuracy recharge, damage recharge, accuracy damage recharge, accuracy damage endurance recharge. On Obliteration, you have accuracy recharge, damage recharge, accuracy damage recharge, accuracy damage endurance recharge. These sets trade off a large amount of endurance mitigation. They get almost no endurance mitigation and return to high levels of recharge. So these enhancements become very valuable on sets that you really want to come back around very quickly, say like a PBAOE nuke. And they also have, and this is another thing that Paragon did that Cryptic just abjectly failed at. If we look at the low level other PBAOE powers, Cleaving Blow, well, that's not a level, it is 10 to 50. Multi Strike, 20 to 50. Siroko's Dervish, we see that they don't really have that strong of effects across the range. Whereas Eradication, in a 10 to 30 range, we have a pretty good endurance boost, we have a very good defense boost, we have a very good HP boost, we have an excellent regeneration boost, and we have a very powerful defense boost on the 6th slot. So going deep with Eradication, as makes sense. In fact, this narrows down the only realistic enhancements you can ever take for a PBAOE are Eradication, Obliteration, Armageddon, and Superior Avalanche. You're completely one, two, three, four of the sets are almost, including the PvP set, are just they're not even viable. And no, this one here doesn't count because it's just the weaker Avalanche. So that's one, two, three, four. Half the sets that you could take on a PBA power, you're not going to take. Now, there is a caveat to here, and you may have seen it on a couple of my Sentinel builds. For 3 slots on the PvP, you do get knockup protection. So if you have a toggle and like a Sentinel can get lightning field at a very high level, and you already have some other form of endurance mitigation, you can do the chance for resist debuff, accuracy endurance recharge, damage endurance recharge, and have some endurance mitigation on a 3 slot PBAOE. There are some builds in which that does actually make sense. But for a full deep slot power, most of these one are just waste. I mean, 7% accuracy for going 6 deep on Fury of the Gladiator. 7% accuracy? 7? I realize I'm going back and doing the overtop theatrics again, but this is kind of important when designing a character, when thinking about the buffs, the enhancements you're going to take, what you're going to do with it. You need to pay attention not just to what the power itself does. Arctic Fog does defense. You need to look at what actually benefits you get because there are trade-offs. I really don't like Frankenslotting on many powers even though you see me do it like on Sleet. I've got 2 procs in here in addition to the Corruptor ATOs. You see it on Arctic Fog where I've got a vast collection of different defense and resist procs. And the thing is with Franking slotting is that if you're having to Franken slot a power, you're either Franking slotting a power for specific procs that are limited to that power, and it's the only power you can get of that type, or you're franking slotting because you cannot afford to get any other enhancements. Now, a good case of where it actually does make sense to franking slot is Arctic Fog. This is a native defense and resist power, so you can get both defense and resistance enhancements on it. So it does become for a corruptor one of the few places where you would have defense and uh, where you would have a toggle defense and endurance without going in, or toggle defense and resistance without going into pool powers, that you can go and just put some procs that would be useful at a low level because you can get Arctic Fog very early. And heat loss. This is one where you could do power transfer and have a 7.5% recharge with that chance for heal sub, or you can do a 6.25% and have that in mod and that regeneration there, and still have the chance for heal self on the end, and still rack up an impressive discount on your recharge reduction. And these are all just balances and trade offs to keep in mind when making a character. Alright, so let's continue on, kind of filling slots in. Now, you might notice there's a blistering cold on kick, and that's really there because in a previous build of this, I had a blistering cold set down on the Corruptor to try and make up that smashing lethal defense. Obviously, I found a way around having to sink a 5-slot blistering cold in. Uh, So for a single slot, what I actually wind up doing is doing a force feedback chance for recharge. So if you're in a position where you have to use kick, if there. Now we come to tough, and this comes back to what I was saying earlier about a few powers that you get specific effects on. Gladiator's armor the PvP set on the resist side gives you a recovery at 2 slots and a knockup protection at 3 slots. And it also gives you a proc with teleport protection and a global defense proc that works at all levels once you slot the gladiator's armor. So that is an incredibly powerful and incredibly useful set with only a minimum amount of slots. So we're going to put tough in there. We're going to go ahead and just fill that out because I'm talking about it. And now we're just going to kind of go back down. We took hasten on the corruptor. And we took hasten because we were going for a perma heat loss. Now, on the current build that I've got over here, heat loss on my corruptor is not, well, if I toss on hasten, we can see that we're within 5 seconds of perma. If I hit Ageless Incarnate, it pretty much is perma. And just to, real quick, we don't know yet if we have any easily droppable sets in the Beast Mastery primary. I haven't actually looked through them yet. Actually, I have done a Beast Mastermind before, and so I do have an idea of what powers I would be looking at. But for right now, we need to focus on what powers we think we might not need to fit whatever we're playing. On the Corruptor, I took Super Speed, but is Super Speed going to be a functional power on the Mastermind? Do I have any other options? Well, on the Corruptor, the only option I have is Super Jump, and that's because I've got Hasten to get as close to permanent heat loss as I can get. I've got Fighting for Weave, which I've got to go deep on for the extra defense. I've got Combat Jumping, again for the defense. And I've got Maneuvers for the defense, and I've got Scorpion Shield for the defense. So in order to reach a defensive soft cap, all of these pools are pretty much accounted for. So I either have to, in order to change within this framework, to change my travel power, I would either have to take Super Jump, or I would have to drop Combat Jumping, make up the defense loss someplace else. And over here we can see that if I take Combat Jumping off, I'm still actually in Smashing Lethal and Energy soft cap. I'm just not in range soft cap. So if there may be a way, there may be something I could do uh, to get a range soft cap. Now, one of those things I could do is do artillery in sleet. Forget using the procs here. And maybe put the corruptor power here, a 3-slot in life drain. Or because our 3-slot here is that recharge time. And we do see here an example of what an 15% accuracy. And so thinking that through to try and make up that range defense without combat jumping. Swapping that to artillery and finding someplace else to put at least 3 of these so I don't lose the recharge. And how many of artillery do I actually need? Alright, 3-slot artillery gives me 0.94. Is 0.94 going to be enough to put me back in the range soft cap? No, because I need at least 1.45 to get back in a soft cap. So I'd have to go deep here. And I can do check windows, set some bonuses. I don't have any bonuses replicating. In Frigidate, I really don't have any other options to look at. And Arctic Fog, if I maybe went with a defense here, maybe drop the status resistance, uh, and went with a defense proc, let's just see what that looks like. We're going to go, what's the best way to do this? We're going to change this, regeneration, and there's actually kind of a cheat here. All right, we're just going to change that to a just look at Gambler Defense, and we see that our total defense has only gone up to 43.76. We're still not within 0.94 of getting over the range soft cap. Now, going back to why had the resistance regeneration proc on Arctic Fog. Some procs, if they are on a toggle power that affects friends, the proc will carry over and affect the friendly allies. So, in theory, putting the regeneration proc on putting the impervious skin status resistance regeneration on Arctic Fog means that theoretically any friendly who steps inside my Arctic Fog should get a regeneration boost. Now, I haven't actually tested to see whether or not this is working on the current server that I play on most of the time, or if it's working on Homecoming. That was the theory, that's why I slotted it. Sometimes procs work that way on the live server. So still kind of looking over this character, is there anything else I could drop to pick up a little bit of ranged defense? Well, I could drop tactics, and that's a foe hold. If it's actually something really sneaky I could do here. I could drop tactics. I could grab web cocoon, and then I could take a slot from here. Let's take the annihilation proc. And then I'm going to do slots, enhancement slots, auto range all slots, and then I'm going to go to hold, and I'm just going to tap in baseless gaze. Now, there's an animation reason why I wouldn't actually do this in game, and why I did go with tactics for the corruptor, and that's because web cocoon requires the Arachnos mace. You don't get the full range of mace options for it, and there's not a no redraw option, so your performance as a character dramatically suffers going with some of these ancillary powers. But when we do that, if we go back to our totals here, we're still not quite into range soft cap, but now we are close enough that we could turn this into we could put in a 3 slot. We still need to pick up a slot from somewhere else. And we could do that. We could go ahead and take that regeneration resist proc there. We lose something, but maybe what we may make up for it in return might be worth it. So we'll pop the Achilles heel off, and now we'll go deep on artillery. Actually, we're just going to go 3 slots on artillery because we know for our uh, we know that for our 3 slot on here for our recharge time, we just need 3. So we went with artillery, and now we're going to go with the proc. And now we're going to go with, we had the quad. And what are we short on? Okay, we've got a really good recharge time, but our damage is in the pits. So we're going to change our accuracy damage and damage recharge. All right, now let's check this. Okay, our endurance discount is still minimal, but we could, let's say, change this to damage endurance recharge time. Okay, now we've got 47.7% endurance reduction. So now we haven't plus this up. If we plus this up, we should be in. Okay, we're at 53%. So we're over half our endurance reduction. Uh, so we're basically doing as well as some other Franken slots. We've still got our 10% enhancement recharge time. We're now doing a decent amount of damage, but Sleet's not a damage power really to begin with. I mean, just it's kind of weak. Uh, really focusing on recharge time and accuracy and endurance reduction really probably would be the big ones here. But if let's check our totals, we're back into soft capped range. We're soft capped to smashing lethal. Let's check our heat loss. We've actually gained a little bit of recharge time from Baseless Gaze and Web Cocoon. So now this build is a little more optimized, and maybe there's some ways we can make it even more optimized. And I particularly wouldn't run this build, but it does give us an idea of what we can change, move around, find different ways to implement things. So we're just going to save this one as a R1 Bravo. It's an alt build, not one I'm probably going to run because I'm already running the original build, which I'm going to now load back up to keep working on the mastermind. All right, name, corruptor, dark blast, cold domination. All right, and around here. Okay, we were still thinking about whether or not we could safely drop hasten, and since we don't know yet, we're gonna give hasten a pass and leave this blank. And we had super speed at 4. We're going to kind of leave that blank. All right, from this point, now I'm going to go ahead and start filling in the actual slotting of the various powers I already have in place using the corruptor build as a guide. So in Frigidate got the full pacing of the turtle. Ice Shield just got a single. Now, if you might be wondering why I'm not sinking more slots into Ice Shield and Glacial Shield because these are team boosting powers. And the practical reality over on the Coal Corruptor, I was already running Agility Radial at the top end. And for most of the groups that this character ran with, there wasn't much point to dumping a ton of slots in the Ice Shield and Glacial Shield. Everyone pretty much already. When you're cranking out sub 20-minute ITFs, the cold domination sinking slots in the Ice Shield and Glacial Shield, not exactly the best use of slots. Alright, so we're going to come back to the mastermind, and now we're going to fill in Frostwork. Now, Frostwork is a slot I did go deep on, even though it is a uh, player effect shield. And the reason I went deep on it is for the preventative medicine, and it's one of the few plus HP powers. Now, if you're rocking a Miss Liberty task force, your tank or brute or whoever's aggroing Lord Recluse probably needs all the regeneration and defense they can get. So in those cases, being able to slam an additional 107% hit points, which can be, in this case, it's calculated as 864.7 hit points. Being able to slam almost an entire archetype worth of hit points on top of another player is generally considered a good thing. And Arctic Fog, we had defense, endurance, recharge. We had our steadfast resistance. Now, something else you might see me do is I always +5 resistance defense and I don't attune them. And that's partially because of the enhancement scaling. And what that means is that when you start to go below level 25, your enhancements start to have a downwards curve applied to them. So that at levels below 25, in many cases, single origin and uh, dual origin enhancements will have a greater effect than a crafted IO on the scaling curves. Basically, I think the breakpoint is like 26, 27, 28, where a crafted IO of the same level starts to have more effect than the equivalent SO, and in lower levels, the DOs, the dual origins. Okay. So uh, that's why you see me do this because it's most of the time it's worth it to have that little bit extra resistance. There are some powers where and since we have a resist power right here, like Aegis. If you've got a three slot Aegis for the 3.313 defense fire cold, you might redo resistance, endurance recharge, psionic status resistance on your powers, and then make up the little bit more resistance to get into ready decap by taking resist defense and slamming the resist component into +5, even if your Aegises are all attuned to level scaling. All right, so and kind of the easy thing to look at least on my builds, is when you mouse over, check each power. If it's a level 50 power and it has no +5, then it's probably I'm using it as an attuned power. If it's a level 50 power that's +5, then I'm obviously using it as a +5 power. And yes, that can make a dramatic difference. And right now, just for now, I'm because another factor we don't know here is we haven't actually looked at the mastermind ATOs. We don't know that they actually give us the same benefits as the corruptor ATOs at the same slot levels. So although while I'm going to fill Sleet out to a full set, I'm not actually going to go and put any enhancements in it simply because those enhancements are the ATO enhancements. And fill this out. Okay, and another thing here, where maybe if you went with power transfer over endurance modification, I kind of went with endurance modification to be cute about taking the end mod increased run speed. But power transfer is equally acceptable. And there's also another power in here that may be worth taking at an enhanced range at a deep slot, and that is preventive optimization. Because it does give you a very powerful defense range boost on 6 slots. It does give you a minor recharge boost. You lose some recharge, but you do have a few more opportunities here, I think, to push your recharge into cap. Now, coming back to heat loss, if I just turn agility off for a second on the corruptor, and then check heat loss, we can see that we're still into yellow ED cap. So we may, boom, here I am sewing things together again. Thus, or because, thereof, therefore, I like saying so. I was kind of being cute here and trying to have the best of both worlds, in that I wanted both the run speed proc and the chance for heal proc. Uh, Now I don't know yet on the mastermind if that's actually a good plan. Yeah, I'm kind of keeping. Well, it says I'm still live, so I think we're still in this. Okay, maneuvers. Now, maneuvers I did shield wall on, defense endurance. Oh, and something else, and this isn't meant to be confusing, but on some sets you'll see me do the proc first and then the others. And on others you'll see me do the enhancements first and then the proc on the end. And the weird kind of logic that I put to it is if it's a leveling proc or it's a standard proc, it normally goes first. If it's a PvP, I have to put it towards the end. And this was just a little practice. I think I started 2007, 2008. Uh, that way, when I was at that point, I was just taking snapshots of the build using a screen capture tool. And not actually really planning them out beyond a spreadsheet and a scrap of notepad. And that way, it was really easy for me to tell, looking at a glance, which one was the PvP, and or rather, where the procs would go. It, yeah, I know, kind of funky. But I never claimed to be anything but funky. And Benum just got 2 recharges, no sets available on it. So yeah, there was some logic to that, and I think I've broken that up a couple times where I'll do the PvP proc first and then the enhancements. And so I really don't know if it's logic or broken muscle memory at this point. Could be both. All right. Uh, we've now got most of the powers that we're going to be taking. So now we need to kind of look through and think about which powers we're going to be skipping or taking. We know we need to take the pets. So all of our pet summons we need to go ahead and take. We also know that we need to take our trainings. Tame beasts. Okay, at some point. Oh, oof. I know I did. I forgot to have that clicked on number one. All right, summon lions, summon dire wolf, train beasts, tame beasts. On most uh, masterminds, most early masterminds, the heal you can just skip. But with beast, something clicked in the live developers. I want to say it was Paragon. I'm pretty sure it was Paragon. I could open up Paragon Wiki and check, but I'm pretty sure it was Paragon Studios. Fortify Pack is not the drop power for Masterminds. All right, where are we at now? We've got our we've got our pets, and now we just have our three attacks: a hawk, a swarm, and some ravens. Now we're pretty sure that we can. We're probably going to have to drop one of these, so we're probably going to be dropping Call Swarm. Yeah, it does a minus defense, minus speed, but we don't want to leave out our damage causing powers. Actually, you need to make sure we're on level 4. Call Hawk, call Ravens, and now we still have 2 slots left. We haven't taken Hasten, and we haven't taken a travel power. So before we do that, let's go ahead and fill out what our pets are going to look like. Or in that case, what are our ATOs going to look like? Now, if we go over to the Mastermind set, Superior Command of the Mastermind gives us a pet plus AoE defense aura. And at pump 6, it's basically just some resist. We really want to go to pump 4 for that recharge time. Can we use that power in Sleet? No. Well, ain't that just joyful? So we are going to have to use our Mastermind archetype enhancements, whereas the Corruptor could use her Corruptor enhancements on Sleet. The Mastermind doesn't have that option. Thus, we are going to have to put that on Summon Wolves, Summon Lions. Can we put it on Call Ravens? No. The only place we can put Mastermind ATOs is on the actual pet summon powers. Now, I'll go ahead and just say it straight out. This was a brain dead decision on the part of whoever made the ATOs. And this isn't the only set that's like this. Dominators, Controllers, and Masterminds got raked over the coals in the ATO selection. They have a very limited number of powers that the ATOs can go in, and that severely hurts, in the cases of Controllers and Dominators, almost forces them to take powers they wouldn't otherwise take because they're not combat effective, because it's the only powers the ATOs can go in. And that's just broken. Can the Homecoming server do anything about that? I wouldn't ask them to. And I really wouldn't ask them to, because expanding the scope of the ATOs as they stand now opens up all sorts of Pandora's boxes. The better approach would be to introduce more specific enhancements like the winter events, the blistering cold, the frozen blast, putting out more enhancements like that. Like over here, I'm not using frozen blast in any of these, I don't think. And I could pick up some AoE defense using frozen blast, but since I'm not going strong on AoE, Frozen Blast doesn't do me as much good as range defense, which is why you don't see any Frozen Blast on the Dark Blast Cold Domination, even though Frozen Blast seems like it'd be a great set to go with Dark Cold. Now, sometimes enhancements are like that. What probably should have been a good choice just can't be a good choice because there's no way to make that enhancement set work as a good choice. So let's bring this back to we know we had at least, what was this? We had a 10% very powerful ranged defense on our Corruptor, and we had a recharge. So recharge and range, recharge. Let's come over and we'll look at Direwolf because this is our tank pet. He's probably going to be doing most of the damage, and he's probably going to be the one we want to survive the longest. So we'll look at our two. Uh, Marcus Supremacy gives us a very powerful melee defense. Melee. Okay, there are some builds in which this actually does work, but it really doesn't offer us anything besides a powerful melee defense, but a 2% recharge, a 10% recharge time at pump 2. Wow, that's actually pretty good. And we don't get any range defense on Command of the Mastermind. We get a 4%, we get 10% at pump 4 recharge time. So both of our Mastermind powers here are pretty crap compared in terms of what bonuses they offer are just utter junk compared to what our Corruptor offers. We also now know that somehow we're going to have to make up 5% defense ranged on top of the Corruptor. Okay, how can we do this? Well, the first thing is we're going to kind of have to scrap using the Mastermind powers, the Mastermind ATOs seriously. What I'm going to do is I'm going to 6 slot out our summons here. And over here in the base summon, I'm going to do Marcus Supremacy. And we're going to just 2 slots. We'll go for other thing. Marcus Supremacy doesn't actually offer us any recharge. Okay, good news is Command of the Mastermind does. So for Marcus Supremacy, we need to pick something that's going to be very useful, that's not recharged, so we're just going to go with flat damage. Sorry, so we're going to do the proc for Marcus Supremacy. We're going to do the proc and flat damage. And then we're going to do Command of the Mastermind proc. And then we're going to go, we want accuracy damage recharge, damage endurance recharge, so we're going to take the bottom 4. And let's check our numbers. Now we have both procs, our damage is red ED cap, our recharge time is yellow ED cap. So we're actually doing pretty good for our Summon Wolves. Summon Dire Wolf, we're going to go to recharge intensive pets, and we've got a 3.13 defense ranged here. So we're going to go ahead and fill out our most powerful, the one we want is going to be our primary tanking character, the one we're going to be pumping Frostwork on as our pet. And we're going to give them a full slot of the expedient reinforcement. Now, Call to Arms doesn't give us a deep range defense, and we can, since the proc is unique, we can only take it once. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up some recharge here and go for slots, and again, take powers with recharge. Because we want our Summon Lions. Well, actually, what is our recharge time anyways? Our recharge time is 60 seconds, and we're already at 22.97 with what we've done. And now we're at 22.44. This is just on what we've already got placed. And for these last 2 slots, we're going to look through. We have a resistance bonus and a defense bonus. Okay, Sovereign Right gives us a regeneration boost. Edict of the Master gives us a speed boost. Well, for right now, what's our recharge look like here? We're not doing a whole lot of damage. We do have a decent recharge boost. And Sovereign Right doesn't give us any recharge boost. Well, none of these powers are going to give us any recharge boost. That's a big problem. And we do see that Edict of Master is 15 to 40, Sovereign Right is 25 to 50, but neither one well, Edict of the Master has a damage, straight damage. What does our purple look like? We've got a chance for a buildup and a massive damage and 16% regeneration. So we're going to do chance for buildup and a flat damage. And now we're red capped, ED capped on damage, so our summon lions can now do a lot of damage. They've got a semi-decent recharge time. Got a little bit of Frankenslot here. Okay, now let's work back to our other powers. Call Ravens is a cone, so we can pick up a TAOE. In this case, we're going to copy from Tenebrious Tentacles and take our artillery set. Okay. Train Beast is not going to give us any enhancements, so we are going to do just a recharge reduction. What power? Oh no. I had something else clicked and I'm now not sure what it was. Was it? Oh, I still. No. What did I have clicked that was at 22 seconds? I was still clicked on Frostwork. Wow. To everyone who saw that I was still clicked on Frostwork and has been screaming, "Hey, you're still clicked on Frostwork." Yeah, I just caught that. Wow. Alright, what was our Summon Lions actually at? Okay, our Summon Lions was actually at 4.03 seconds recharge. Okay, this is the other reason why you may not need to do recharge intensive pets, even though they offer you astoundingly good set bonuses. Because unlike the regular pet sets, they don't suck. Yeah, I said it. Alright, anyways, let's hit that unlock button. Let's not do that again. And Train Beast, we have a recharge time of under 4 seconds, so we're just going to leave it at a um, endurance reduction. And same thing with Train Beast, Tame Beast, we have a base recharge of 5.63. So we're just going to do an endurance reduction. And now that frees us up some slots. Oh, I forgot to fill in Scorpion Shield. We had done a 3-slot Luck of the Gambler. Okay. So now we have, sewing it up again, we have our various enhancements in place. And we are, Call Hawk is a single target damage. And on the Corruptor, we had taken Thunderstrike. Right now, we don't have any particular reason to change that. So we'll go ahead and fill out with Thunderstrike. All right, let's check this over. We've got our ATOs. We've got our Refrigerate, Ice Shield. We haven't yet taken a Travel Power. We still have 2 slots to go. We still have an entire power selection to choose. We've got our pets. We've got 7 slots to work with. Now, we're missing an answer to Nightfall for range damage. We still have slots to play with in Sleet. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and put 6 slots into Fortify Pack. And now we have just 2 slots to work with and 2 powers. Now we know that if we take Hasten, we know that if we take it, put a slot in it, we've still got 1 slot to go. And we don't know, now we've locked in our travel power either has to be super speed or super jump. We don't know yet what our final power down here is going to be. Whatever it is, well, actually we do. Our final power down here is going to be the travel. Wow. really mean? Our final power is going to be the travel power, but we haven't determined whether or not we are going to try and take hasten or if we're going to work around hasten. So before we make that decision and what our travel powers be, or if we go with a different option, we're going to check our totals. And we can see here that with all of our powers up, we are at 44.51, 44.51, 48.06, and 38.28. We are still massively down on range defense compared to the Corruptor. But there is a catch. We haven't yet turned on the incarnate power. So we'll do incarnates, and I'll choose agility radial. I go with agility radial because of the travel speed bonus, and now that the travel speed limits have been bumped up, this is even more. That buff is even more pronounced. So we're going with agility radial paragon, agility radial paragon, and now we can check that we're now easily into smashing lethal energy, and we're only 5 short on ranged. So whatever we put into fortify pack would be nice if it gave us a range damage. Ooh, hey, there's 3.75. That's not quite enough. And just double check, we've got our defense powers there. And as I think I showed earlier, Fortify Pack didn't actually do anything for the player themselves. And okay, so how do we want to do this? Okay, what does this do? It amps up the defense and regeneration of pets. Well, we do know because we're in ice and we can throw ice shield, glacial shield between Arctic fog and maneuvers. We're already pumping out a serious amount of defense. We also have a defense bonus aura from Call to Arms. Excuse me while I find some tissues. And I'm back. All right. So, sewing things up again. The point kind of is we do kind of know that we have a slot to play with. We don't really need the impervious skin status resistance. We How are we doing on Luck of the Gambler? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've already got all 5 of those. We've got the scaling resist damage proc and combat jumping. So there's really nothing in here. We haven't yet taken, or we have taken the preventative medicine chant for absorb. So we've already got our passive on frostwork. And there's not really another passive. But if we take Numina's convalescence and just hammer that out, we give our pets a very powerful regeneration, and then we may, do a miracle in health. Okay, so there we go, sewing things together again. Let's run with that then. We're going to take Numina, and we're going to set Numina in Fortify Pack. And we're going to go ahead and just bump this out all the way, slam it as hard into the cap as we can. Wow. So used to clicking on preventative medicine. All right, what's that look like? Let's check our info. Lock off Fortify Pack. Now, at our base, we're only adding 11.89% regeneration. Is that right? Huh. That seems really low. Let's bump up our stat pack of mentality. Huh. Huh. Well, we know for certain one thing. Mid-Sarah Reborn is not correctly calculating what the effect of Fortify Pack does. Alright, until we actually get it in play, we really don't know from these calculations how this will perform. What's our survivability look like? We are at 44.48%. Oh, wow, that's actually pretty good. Our recharge is at 85%. Let's turn off hasten over here on the corruptor. Our corruptor is at 92.5%. So we are down on recharge compared to the corruptor at the same level. Thus, we also know that heat loss is not even going to be close to perma. Right? So what are we looking at next then? Uh, do we finish off the ranged? Do we in Sleet do artillery for the easy range defense? And then find something else to put in Fortify Pack so we can pick up that Numi proc elsewhere? Maybe do... how are we doing on any other defenses that maybe we could close the gap on? Not really. Any other procs that may be worth taking? Well, we do have the 7. We can free up another slot by taking a PvP enhancement. Okay. Let's see what that looks like. We're going to drop that out of there. We're going to fill Sleet out with artillery. And we're going to change Fortify Pack to Panacea. Now at this point we have 2 slots to play with, so we could actually take health out 2 slots and do both the Numi proc and a Panacea proc. So now we have the proc recovery, we have the Numi regen recovery, and we have the endurance over time. Now let's check and see what that looks like. Huh. We're still not in a range soft cap after making that change. Excuse me. I think I need to go find a bottle of Claritin. Alright, 1 Claritin later. Let's see if this helps with the sniffles any. Alright. We're back to making that little change. We didn't quite get back our defensive soft cap to ranged. Huh. Okay. Well, so we know that if we take... Wow, sewing things up together. If we take Fortify Pack and run the Numi at 6 slot, then we do get the ranged defense. Is there any place where we can pick up some other ranged defense for ourselves? Okay, and one of the other things to keep in mind here is that mastermind endurance consumption is generally higher, thus endurance recovery is a little bit more important. Doesn't really look like there's an easy way to do this. It's like I don't want to put the Numi set on here because it's not a toggle, it is a click. And I don't. Hmm, what's that look like? Alright, making that one change to combat jumping brought us up and over the range soft cap defense. Now, from this point, we could just lock it off. We've now and make our final power selections. Looking at heat loss, without hasten, we are at 115.1 second recharge. And now we also know that the Mastermind version numbers are broken too in Mid-Zero Reborn, because the duration is definitely not 2 seconds. Probably should be the same as the Corruptor. What was our total recharge time? 92.5, 92.5. We've actually got the same numbers then. So we're not perma on heat loss. If we take hasten, don't quite close the gap, still off. And at this point, we're really down to player discretion. What does the player want to do? How does the player want to run this? And that if you want to take another travel power, you don't want super speed or super jump. You want to take flight. And you want to take flight because you don't really have any melee powers except for heat loss. And this is where okay, things can get a little bit more complicated. And that's why I really saved this one for last. Let's change out and go for sorcery. And we're going to do Mystic Flight and Spirit Ward. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're kind of deep slotted on Frostwork to get this preventative medicine proc. But we could take some of these enhancements off. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is we're going to shift where things are. We're going to what I call SCLR, soft cap level revision. Now most of the time I SCLR down, get soft cap at a lower level. But at a mastermind with the bodyguard mode, you may not necessarily need soft cap at lower levels, even though it's vital at higher levels. We're going to then move maneuvers all the way down, scorpion shield all the way down, weave all the way down, and we'll take tough and move tough all the way down. Now we've got Mystic Flight real early, and we've got Spirit Ward. We're going to swap Spirit Ward and Kick. You can see some of the enhancements turn gray, so I'm going to do slots. I'm going to do slots and enhancement slots, auto range all slots. Our slots have now gone white to show that they are valid. And we have no slots left to play with. I'm going to pull the Numina. From there, I'm going to replace the Miracle with a Numina. I'm going to pull the Regeneration from Arctic Fog. I'm going to pull a slot from Frostwork. I'm going to pull a couple of slots from Frostwork. And slots and enhancements. Auto arrange all slots. Actually going to reclaim a slot from there since I now have more than I thought. I'm going to put that back on Arctic Fog, and then we're going to do slots and enhancements, slots, auto arrange all slots. Okay, it's not going to the end. We're going to real quickly put our status effect enhancement back in there. We're going to change our Frostwork to heal and heal, recharge, time, endurance. We'll keep a proc in there, chance for absorb. And we are into an ED cap. We're not offering as much before. All right, what are we at? We're still at range soft cap defense. Mystic Flight, we're going to put in our travel enhancement. Well, we've got that used twice, so we're going to come back here. We're going to swap this back to Miracle. And I'm not filling this out to plus because I'm honestly not sure how this is going to calculate. Going to go to totals and I'm looking at regeneration. Does regen change 11.8 HP per second? Right, okay, 10.98. So regeneration is changing and recovery is changing depending on whether or not Spirit Ward is active. What I've done here is I've now placed an enemy proc on a toggle absorb that it goes to an ally. Now, if you set this toggle absorb on your dire wolf, you've now got an absorb barrier on your tanking pet. And there's also one other change that we could have made here. Let's turn agility off for a second. You can see we're still at range soft cap defense with these changes. We're still in soft cap to smashing lethal energy ranged. And there was one other change we could have made. We could have swapped preventative optimization and gotten defense ranged. We already know that our recharge time is not capped here. Our recharge time is 131 with these enhancements without agility. I'm going to change this to preventative maintenance. And we can see we have a few more enhancements in preventative maintenance. Oh, whoops. And fill this out. And now we see that our recharge time base is pushed slammed into ED cap. We're now rocking 129. We are still at smashing lethal energy soft caps. We're now also definitely into debuff potential range on ranged soft cap defense. So we could take a little bit of soft cap defense away from somewhere else. In this case, we could change our Panacea here, take the Panacea proc, and still fill out the rest of the set. In this case, we only need to go pump 5, and we may be able to skip endurance recharge. You may want to take it, uh, and maybe skip the heal recharge. So we'll skip the heal recharge, go to endurance recharge, take the heal endurance, take the Numi off, and now we can see we're actually still into ED capped heal. We're still into our ED capped absorb. We still got a pretty good endurance count, 89.92%. We are still into range soft cap, smashing lethal, energy soft cap. We now have a free slot to pick up that we could put down on health and pick back up the Numi on a constant toggle for us. And now we've got a heal over time that's in our panacea. We've got a very powerful ward to set on our pet, on our tanking pet. We've got a plus HP to set on our tanking pet. If we wanted to just eat the endurance cost, we could change this to just a heal recharge, but that's probably not necessary, because if you look at the recharge time, the duration is 120 seconds. The recharge is, as long as is already at half that at 60 seconds. So we could change our heal recharge time endurance to a heal endurance. And now we've buffed up our heal a little bit more, our HP hit points a little bit more. And now let's put the cherry on top. We're going to go to incarnates, and this time instead of agility, we're going to take spiritual core paragon. Now our frost work is slammed into yellow ED cap. We're now doing 114% plus health, which is calculated as 920.9 HP. Down here, our spiritual core is there. You can see it's active. And our heat loss is now at 112. Still not quite perma, but now you're only 22 seconds or so off of perma. If you took Ageless Incarnate, and we may be able to see what that kind of looks like. Ageless, Radial, and unless you have a reason otherwise, always take Ageless Radial because it gives you defense debuff resistance, and that's generally pretty hard to get. You really, really want it. And there we go. With Ageless up, our heat loss is now down to 92 seconds. Now, that's at the full buff of Ageless, I think. And Ageless has a decay rate, so you're still not going to be quite perma due to the Ageless decay rate, but you are going to be much closer to having heat loss up when you want it. And on top of that, this build is still in a smashing lethal energy range soft cap. With Mystic Flight, you can now hover out of range of enemies while directing your pets to attack them. If you need to get within range of enemies, you can use Mystic Flight Translocation, teleport into an enemy, hit your heat loss, and then get back out while your pets are basically tanking the damage. And there you go. That's taking a Corruptor build that has a certain specific level of survivability, porting it into a Mastermind, a completely different archetype, and then adjusting the different sets, and then figuring out something that works for the Mastermind that makes the Mastermind more powerful. Side by side, the builds are obviously different, and that's because there are different strengths and weaknesses to each one. But now we have something where, without even knowing uh, without even knowing how the character is going to play, we can already predetermine, looking at the available information, how this character could play, and we've already pre-optimized for that. Now, what's next? Well, as I said, we're going to do the other players, Electric SR Sentinel, and we're going to give it the same kind of look at what its strengths are, and then build from there. This is Aurian Archive.